All right, guys, we get to solve another mystery today. So we've got this beautiful car right here. This is a mint condition, absolutely immaculate 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Got 165,000 miles on the odometer. The owner is an older lady, but with a lot of personality and fire and energy, and she loves this car. Absolutely loves this car. You can see she takes amazing care of it. Look at the engine bay. Absolutely, she takes pride in this car, but she's been frustrated for quite some time as the engine overheats. For months, this lady has been chasing an overheat problem where 3 different shops have basically said there's nothing wrong. So the first shop replaced, what is the history? Let me pull it. Okay, so the first shop did like this complete diagnostic, including compression test, and they also did a radiator pressure test, cooling system pressure test, looking for leaks. The owner states that they don't lose any coolant. There's no drips of coolant on the garage floor. Don't have to add coolant, anything like that. So the shop replaced the thermostat, figuring it may be broken and restricting flow. By the way, heat works on the vehicle. This didn't resolve the problem as the engine still overheated. She took it to another shop because the diagnostic fee was really expensive for that. And the second shop replaced the water pump and flushed the cooling system, including the radiator. That still didn't fix it, but then it's the same shop she took it back to the second time. I thought it was the third shop. So then they replaced the coolant temperature sensor. They believe it may be an electrical problem where the engine isn't actually overheating, but there may be a problem with the gauge or maybe some shorting out with the coolant temperature that is causing the gauge to artificially read high. So that is where we are at. She brought it to me after being recommended by another neighbor, and we're hoping that we can figure out what's going on here. And hopefully that shop is right. Maybe it isn't overheating. We could have some other variables. Maybe the fins in the radiator are clogged. We could also maybe have some kind of physical interference with the braking system or something that's causing the engine to be under load more and working harder. All kinds of variables here. But the first thing, simply because my policy, because we have a car that we suspect an overheat, we're going to do our typical thing and we're just going to run through and make sure that we don't have any engine damage or blown head gasket as a result of overheat, because we don't want to go through a whole diagnosis and a repair that could cost a lot of money, only to do it on essentially a blown engine, and then we charge the customer for all this work that doesn't fix the problem. So we don't want that to happen. So let's go ahead. I can tell you the car runs perfectly fine. I did an audible compression test. It sounds perfectly fine. The last 2 videos we did, we had owners that thought they had severe issues with their car. Turned out not to be so. Hopefully we continue this trend on. Let's take a listen. All right, I cannot believe how well this engine seems maintained. Okay, so you see we got oil there, looks pretty normal. Let's take another reading of that because I just drove it in. Yep, oil at the right level. Looks pretty uneventful there. Coolant in the radiator right there. See it right up to the neck. Okay, so we're all looking good there. Could be, let's see, we got 1 large fan here. I'm sure that first shop, I hope, checked the electrical fans. I just had one in last week. 2 electrical fans. One of the fans was burned out. The engine would overheat when he would apply the air conditioning because the second fan wouldn't turn on. Let's see here. Yeah, let's just go ahead and take a listen, but everything looks pretty clean here. All right, I don't know. I kind of thought there might have been a little bit of a skip there. That is super subjective and really hard to call. But I do want to pursue on that course a little bit further, so let's go ahead and do the compression test. All right, so as all my regular viewers know, compression tests are stupid, especially after the shop already did one and found nothing wrong. This one will be particularly stupid because I don't think I have a good location to hook my amp clamp up to on this. I don't even know where the battery is on this vehicle. Hold on. All right, is it in the wheel well? Oh, wait a minute. I think I know where it is. I think it's actually under the seat on the passenger side. Okay, it was indeed. I remember running into this a while ago. I had to Google where the damn battery is. And there's other vehicles that do this too. They have a compartment underneath the driver's seat. You got to move it all the way forward and access the battery under a panel there. Do 2 seconds per division. I don't need any help. I know what I'm doing. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, that time really sounded pretty normal. That time might have been a little cylinder wash or something. Cold engine maybe the first time, but that sounded pretty normal to me. That certainly didn't raise any alarms. All right, let's get a look here. All right, let's see, we got one cylinder a little bit lower here. Let's see if that's repeatable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. Let me get another sample here. Maybe a little bit lower there. 1, well, and here. So honestly, this looks pretty consistent to me. I don't think that I see any issue here on the compression test. And of course, as you know, I hate compression tests. They mean nothing to me. As I incorrectly state, they can lie. It's not really lying. It's just that you can sometimes have conditions where you do have blown head gasket. It just doesn't show on the compression test. I can't even count how many times this means nothing. If we definitely saw a miss in the cylinder here, yeah, we would go with that. I don't see it here. So let's go ahead and clear out of that and let's try something else. Okay, I don't think there's a blown head gasket on this car. I'm kind of liking the idea of an electrical problem with the gauges or something. The car seems to be perfectly fine. But I just want to be thorough because of the fact, how am I going to do this? Just want to be thorough because of the fact that professional mechanics looked at this and couldn't find anything really wrong. So I just want to be thorough. One explanation could be one of these sneaky blown head gaskets that would be very easy to miss. So we just want to rule that out. There we go. So what we're going to do is a radiator pressure test here and check for any possible evidence of the cooling system getting some compression pressure in it. All right, so let's connect this up. All right, so if this test is negative, then I will be satisfied we do not have anything to worry about as far as engine damage or compromise between the cylinders and the cooling system, and we'll be happy. But this test is very reliable. As a matter of fact, arguably, there's no need to do the compression test. Just go right to this test, but just wanted to show you guys the process here. Squeeze the radiator hose and we're at way too fast of a time frame. I was wondering where my signals were. Okay, let's take a look here. Just gonna squeeze radiator hose just a little bit. You can see we can get readings there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the big screen. All right, let's see what this does. Uh-oh. Oh, this car's got a blown head gasket. Yep, for sure. Well, how about that? All right, this car has a pinhole leak with a head gasket. We are getting compression pressure into the cooling system, which is eventually causing an overheat if she drives it enough. We can tell because we are developing pressure just during a crank. There should be no reason for that to happen. Plus the nature of it here, if we examine, it's not as clear cut as like a full out blown head gasket would be. But if we look here, we can see a stepwise pattern right here. This is 100% definitive. There is looks like a single cylinder that is pumping compression into the cooling system. There is no question about it. This is very bad news for this customer, especially with her enthusiasm about her car. This is a major engine problem right there. That's a done deal. How many times? The compression sounds good. It looks good. We don't see any evidence of this on the compression test. How many times? I see this all the time, that the compression test passes, looks normal, within spec. That is a blown head gasket. As a matter of fact, I think what we're going to do is we're going to prove it just to give a visual on it. What I wonder, so I'm wondering if we can cue this with an ignition event so that we can see which cylinder is responsible for this. I'm just trying to think, could there be a time delay that as that ignition fires, we're on top dead center, compression, by the time that compression pulse reaches my tester, is that going to be a delay? Or will that be instantaneous? Let's just try it. I'm not sure, but I'd like to identify that cylinder so we can do a leak down test and definitively prove this situation here. That is why compression tests, in my opinion, are stupid. And we have solved this mystery in just like 5 minutes after however much money she spent on a blown engine. So at least we did the right thing there. Okay, we need to do some research real quick. Okay, and we've got cylinder number 1 on my right front, and we've got firing order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, let's go over to cylinder number 1. All right, radiator pressure test with WPS 500X transducer. Definitely one of the most reliable tests on the planet. If I had just gone to that right from the start, we would have literally diagnosed this vehicle probably in 2 minutes. All right, let's see what we're dealing with here. We've got this air induction in the way here over my number 1. Can we get over here to the other side? No, we can't. Oh, that's worse. Okay, so much easier to remove this because the other side, the other bank, is under the intake manifold. What we're going to do is we're going to try this with an ignition probe and see if we can pull this. What I don't understand is why I see this phenomenon so much more. In the 10 years I've been doing this stuff, I can tell you I have seen this exact issue that you saw today, normal compression test, blown head gasket. I have seen this probably maybe a dozen times in the last 5 years, but never once have I seen it in the 6 years before then. So I don't know if it's just something with engine designs now or what. The compression test is just unreliable. All right, let's set up here. And what I'm hoping to do, why did I disconnect my picoscope? That wasn't very smart. Okay, we want to get a ground on here to protect my picoscope, which was, of course, an amazing gift from a viewer, Robert Roble. Man, the gift that keeps on giving. Okay, so I can just lift up this air tube right here, and I can easily see the coil. I'm going to lay my probe right on top of that coil right there, and let's take a look. Well, that worked magnificently. Okay, so it looks like we've got Looks like we're in the middle of a step here. We've got a step. It's kind of hard to tell, isn't it? Let's see if we zoom in a little bit more. Interesting. The more you zoom in, the harder it is to actually tell. So all right, maybe something like that. We clearly have, well, it's actually kind of hard to see the step pattern, but it looks like right there is a step up. Let me see if I can mark the steps. All right, there's a step right there. Looks like another step right there. Okay, so our firing event is happening between steps here. And it's not happening just before we get a pressure pulse, or is it? Is it that this is our ignition signal, but then there is a slight delay? I mean, we're talking like 280 milliseconds. And what I'm thinking is it's possible that maybe cylinder number one could be our issue. And we get our ignition event, and then we see it on our cylinder transducer through the cooling system just a hair later. That could be possible. I don't really know. It is possible that it's not cylinder number one at all. I've not really done this before in this method, but I think what we're going to do is start with cylinder number one and just try to see if we're lucky that it is on bank one, because bank two is under the intake manifold. And we'll just do a leak down test on bank one and see if we get lucky and catch the bad cylinder. All right, you know what? For you old school guys on the channel who remember my cylinder head test methods video, I was just thinking, remember my crackhead friend from St. Louis, Cedric, and the sizzle test? So I decided we'll go ahead and give that a try right there and see if the sizzle test would pick this up. All right, for those of you guys not familiar, the Cedric test, as I call it, I learned this when I used to go to the junkyards and get parts from the junkyard, and this crackhead guy there, like literally he was a crackhead, taught me this trick where you get a little sample of oil in this aluminum foil here, and then you heat it with a lighter underneath. And if there is any moisture in the oil, any coolant in the oil, it'll sizzle like a fried egg. Turns out it's one of the most reliable tests I know of, and I'm just curious, is that going to work here? So let's give it a try. All right, we're just going to heat up. And if there's no moisture, the oil will just smolder. Oops, caught it on fire there. And as you can see, we're negative on our sizzle test. Oops, don't want to catch fire there. Let me just show you what would happen. Get a little bit of coolant in there. And now when we do it, hear that? See how it sizzles like that, indicating moisture in there. Well, this car has a blown head gasket, 100%. The sizzle test even failed. In that older video where I show all these ways of testing for blown head gaskets, both legitimate and kind of old wives' tale methods, this proved to be one of the most reliable, but there is no coolant in the oil. Again, she's not losing coolant. So the nature of however this compromise is not typical, where you get coolant contamination in the oil. She may not even be burning coolant out the exhaust even. Okay, we've got our test hooked up here. And what we're going to do, let me make sure the coolant's topped off here, and we're going to pressurize cylinder number one. Going to get on that radiator neck right here. And of course, if we have a compromise in that cylinder going to the cooling system, which we do, maybe it's not on number one, but it's somewhere in this engine, we're going to pump coolant out of there. All right, connect up our gauge. And we're just going to rotate the engine until we develop compression in that cylinder. All right, sounds like we're on intake stroke there, so we should be getting close. There's our compression. And I don't see anything happening there. All right, let's release that. Let's go to the next cylinder. Okay, we're gonna go to cylinder number 3 now. Okay, oh, and it's already at top dead center, actually. Right there. Oh, and the coolant is rising. Here we go. All right, there we go. Blown head gasket. Cylinder number 3, right there. Well, that is pretty unarguable. Oh, it's spilling out through the overflow tube is what's happening. Clamp that off, get a little more dramatic effect maybe. All right, well, there we have it, cylinder number 3. Now, this brings up a question. So the way you get good at this is by always improving your skills all the time, especially when you've got a rare opportunity, which we do here. What would happen if we timed our ignition signal on number 3 with the steps in the compression that we see with the transducer, and how that timing works out? So one thing, if I had saved the file, we could have actually done that because we know the firing order, we know the number of degrees between each firing event, but I didn't save the file, unfortunately. So we do have to repeat it. But let's go ahead and set this up again with the pressure transducer with a firing event on cylinder number 3 this time, and see how it correlates with our compression events. All right, we're gonna set up our ignition probe here on number 3 now, which we know is our faulty cylinder, and let's see where that lines up on our compression. Okay, didn't look like our pressure increase was quite as prominent that time for whatever reason. Could be we spilled out some of the coolant during our leak down. Let's go back here. Okay, and let's see if we can identify a step. It does appear that at times with the step, I'm going to say that we've got a step between here and here. Let's just see. All right, yeah, so I think it actually does seem to correlate. It's a little hard to tell, but it does look like the steps up happen immediately after cylinder number 3 fires. So it does look like you can key it to that particular cylinder. Let me try a couple measurements here. So this area here, if we take a measurement kind of the average there, looks like we're at about 0.4 psi there. And then if we look in this area, kind of a step up, yeah, the average is definitely higher. Absolutely. Yeah, at about 0.408. And yeah, it absolutely correlates perfectly with that ignition timing event. So this means we could have used the firing order in order to determine which cylinder was responsible for the compression event in the cooling system from the very first test, even though we weren't on the right cylinder. All right, that's good to know. All right, well, I did call the customer and give her the bad news. She was actually fairly devastated, but actually not surprised. She thought that it was probably something serious because nobody else was able to figure out what's going on. She wants the car fixed, though. She says whatever it costs, whatever the best thing to do is, she wants to fix the car. So I'll talk with her and we'll look at some options. Most likely a replacement engine is the most intelligent way to go here, given that she wants to keep the car for a really long time. We'll maybe follow up with her after she makes a decision and we'll let you know what happens. But there's how you diagnose a blown head gasket that does not present itself. You could spend a lot of money chasing this overheat condition, never fix the problem, never think it's a head gasket. Don't forget, you gotta check out Schrodinger's Toolbox. We just reviewed an AI-driven diagnostic scanner that is supposed to use AI to help tell what's wrong with the vehicle. You might want to, if nothing else, check out that video just so you're up to date on what the new technology and trends are. All right, thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time.